My brothers and sisters, the Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus told his disciples this parable. A man going on a journey called in his servants and entrusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to a third 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. Immediately the one who received 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5. Likewise, the one who received 2 made another 2. But the man who received 1 went off and dug a hole in the ground and buried his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants came back and settled accounts with them. The one who had received 5 talents came forward, bringing the additional 5. He said, "Master, you gave me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more." His master said to him, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibilities. Come share in your master's joy." Then the one who had received 2 talents also came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more." His master said to him, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibilities. Come, share your master's joy." Then the one who had received the 1 talent came forward and said, "Master, I knew you were a demanding person, harvesting where you did not plant and gathering where you did not scatter. So out of fear, I went off and buried your talent in the ground. Here it is back." His master said to him in reply, "You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I did not plant and gather where I did not scatter. Should you not then have put my money in the bank so I could have got it back with interest on my return? Now then, take the talent from him and give it to the one with 10. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will grow rich. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And throw this useless servant into the darkness outside, where there'll be wailing and grinding of teeth." The Gospel of the Lord.
Peace and goodness to you, my friends. This is going to be either a very long homily or a very short one. You can pray accordingly. It's almost as if the gospel parable demands that we sit down and talk. That parable about the talents has been coming down to us as having a sense of, well, your gifts. You have an ability to play music. You have an ability to paint. You must develop those gifts. You have an intellect. You must develop that intellect. And that is really one interpretation, but there really is no hard evidence that that's a good interpretation of the text. It's perhaps a better interpretation to think of, instead of the word gifts, instead of the word talent, the word gifts. When we come into this world, we, as Christians, are baptized and receive the gift of faith, the gift of the Holy Spirit. And as we grow, that gift of the Holy Spirit, bless you, Amy, that gift of the Holy Spirit grows. We go through catechetical instruction, right? We receive the sacraments of First penance, first Eucharist, then with more study. First, we receive confirmation, and then if there's a marriage involved, there's a study for marriage. And then it comes to a point where either after we're married or even sometimes after we're ordained, we're done. That's it. All I need to know, I know. No more. That's the gift of faith. And we take it and we put it in the ground. But is that what Jesus did? And is that what he's saying in this parable? Now remember, he's speaking to people, or Matthew was speaking to people in 80 A.D. He's speaking to peasants who have very little idea about gifts, about talents. That's just not in their realm of thinking. So we have to transpose this and say, well, okay, now what is Jesus saying to us? And how can we learn what he's saying from the way he lived his life? As far as the Pharisees and the scribes and some of the others were concerned, Jesus was a revolutionary. Correct? He defied their teachings, didn't change their dogma, but defied their teachings. He ate with Gentiles and sinners. He forgave prostitutes. He cured on the Sabbath. His disciples ate the grains of wheat on the Sabbath. He did so many things that defied their traditions for one reason: to stretch them, to say, I come for compassion, for mercy, forgiveness. They had this teaching, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And Jesus said, no. If a person asks for your shirt, give him your coat as well. If you are asked to walk 1 mile, walk 5 miles with them. Jesus taught us in his own life and his own way of responding to the traditions of his faith at that time something quite startling. Grow, stretch, develop. You know, where would we be if when Henry Ford came out with his Model T, and today now on November the 16th, 2014, we still had the Model T? How popular would that be? Well, look at industry. Industry, the cars, fashion have grown. Look at your fashions. Look at your music. Everything in our life. Just look at the kind of food that we have and the ways we have of preparing food. Our life, our whole way of living from the time that we were born has grown, changed. Has our faith done the same? Or is it still in that tiny little box buried in the ground? Are we still, after the last sacraments that we have received, I'm done, don't need to know anything more, don't need to grow anymore, that's my faith, sealed, signed, delivered, and it's been that way for the past 20 years. Then along comes Pope Francis. What is he telling us? What is he saying? Take that faith that you have been gifted with, open the box to fresh air and sunlight and the graces that God has given us so that it can grow, deepen, develop, expand, and blossom. And so some that are saying, he's messing with the teachings of the church. They can change. Oh, yes, they can. Dogmas don't. Teachings change. And one you all recognize. One you all can relate to. Eating of meat on Friday. Remember when it was only fish? Non-meat? And now it's not. What happened? We're called to do something positive rather than something that is depriving. Expand. There was a time in the church, or in society, in Christianity, before the Protestant Revolution, where you as a Christian could not lend money and receive interest. Nope. It was a sin. And it was a grave sin. If you loan money to anyone with the intent of receiving interest, you committed a grave sin. Is that teaching now? Of course not. That's why the Jewish people were so many in the banking industry. Shakespeare wrote a play about it called The Merchant of Venice. Shylock is a Jew. Who among you, or among us, would want to put your money in a bank now that doesn't give you something on it? It's not a sin. So, teachings can change. Dogmas don't. And we think that, the Holy Father speaks dogmatically every time he opens his mouth. He does not. The Holy Father has spoken twice, dogmatically. First time, Mary was conceived immaculately without sin. Second time, Mary was assumed into heaven. Body, soul, body, soul. Those are the two dogmas that two different popes pronounced. Pope Francis is speaking to all of us. Is there anyone here who doesn't believe that the Pope, the Holy Father, is the vicar of Christ on earth? That is a dogma. Not pronounced by the Holy Father, but pronounced by the Council. The Holy Father is the vicar. That means the person instead of Christ on earth. So when he speaks, it behooves us to listen. What is he telling us to do? Open your hearts. Be compassionate toward one another. Stop judging one another. Forgive one another. The same things that Jesus did. If our faith is the same as it was last year, nothing coming in and very little going out, we have to really examine ourselves and to say, well, how is my faith stretching me? How is my faith challenging me? How is my faith helping me to grow, to blossom? If it has to be always black or white. Life is not black or white. Our faith has to represent our life. And we grow in that life by grace, by new information and inspiration. And the Holy Father is the great source of information and inspiration. So, it behooves us, it challenges us to understand, take a lesson from the rest of the things that we enjoy in life, and as faith as food, styles, cars, all of our development of society has changed and grown as it should, so must our faith. In order for our faith to meet those challenges, those questions that society proposes for us at this time. It's unfortunate, I think, because I read in the press, and I read, of course, the things that come out of Rome, and the intentions of the Holy Father are so misconstrued. We as Catholics, especially, have to remember that this is the Vicar of Christ speaking and teaching and helping us to follow Christ and to do what Christ did and not be content with a faith that is in a box in the ground and doesn't grow. Because you know as well as I do, what happens when you put something in a box in the ground that doesn't grow? It's dead. Unfortunately, some of us try to have a dead faith be the support, be the inspiration, and the answer to some of the questions that we face in today's society. And a dead faith can't do that. Can it? As hard as it may be for us to let go of the old, remember, we're not letting go. We're building up. We're not letting go. We're allowing our faith to blossom and to grow. May the Lord grant you peace in ways that the world cannot. Let us stand now, recite the Apostles' Creed. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in